Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, also known as Dr. Burnout. Today we have with us Dr. Tracey L. Johnson. She's been the CEO of multiple nonprofit organizations, and I'd like to bring her up. We're going to talk today about caregiver stress and parenting. Welcome, Tracey. Dr.
Well, thank
Tracey.
you for having me.
Now, I'd love for you to share. I gave a little brief introduction about you, and I'd love for you to share a little bit with our audience, more detail about what you've been doing and some of the things that you have coming up.
So, I have my doctorate in counseling, education, and supervision. I'm also a licensed professional counselor, mental health service provider, and a certified employee assistance professional. With all those hats, I would say my greatest work is the work that I have done as the CEO of several nonprofits. I've done several nonprofit startups, and that's the most fulfilling. It may not fill my bank in the same way, but it's still the one that I enjoy, as well as I have over 20 years in private practice as a therapist. So yeah, that's what I have been doing. But in the role of a parent, that's what I tell my clients. That's the hardest job you'll ever have. And the pay is not guaranteed, not even after 18 years, but we do it from a place of love, and it gives us fulfillment in so many other ways.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to share that you are a Navy veteran, uh,
I am, yeah.
as well as I've known you since the eighth grade.
Ninth grade for us.
Ninth grade.
For you
Okay.
and Cheryl. Ninth grade for us. Yes, yes. Longtime friends. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you bring up such a good point when you talk about the most important job being parenting and
Mhm.
that pay not being guaranteed. And I think that's so interesting when we talk. One of the things that I've seen in working with young people and even parents is sometimes they find themselves in the position where they need to care for their parent or care, and not in the way like that, well, my parent is disabled or they've had this medical condition and their lives are drastically changed, but there's even been this expectation, well, now you're an adult, you need to care for me. And
Mm.
their life, I don't know if you've ever encountered that in your work in nonprofits. And
So for sure, but also in personal life, a quick burnout story that I think I don't mind sharing was my grandmother was the caregiver for my great grandmother as well as my great aunt. She was primarily caring for my great grandmother, but at some point, my great aunt became a double amputee after a stroke. She became nonverbal, communicated through a letterboard and some little bit of writing. And I think back on it, and I don't know how her son, who was well able, did not end up caring for her. But
mm,
I guess because my great grandmother, that was her sister, my grandmother took care of both of them, and they both outlived her. She died in her early 50s,
oh
and
my goodness.
they both lived well into their 80s. And in her, what she passed away from was very treatable. Um,
Mm,
and she did not have to pass, but they never missed an appointment. She was on their medicines. They were diabetic. They were well cared for. But in the
right.
midst of caring for them so well, she neglected to care for herself. And it was very difficult for us to lose her at such a young, I didn't realize
Right.
how young she was. I was in the eighth grade when she passed away, and a great loss for our family.
Yeah.
So I did learn lessons from that. And not only do I try to make sure I do better in my life, but I try to share with others that you can't allow yourself to be gone before those who you love and care for, because then who's going to care for them in the way that you would have? No one.
Ri- Oh, that is so very true. And a similar story for my grandmother, caring for everybody else and not taking care of herself. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time she went to the doctor, her breast cancer was out of control.
Wow.
So I think you also bring up a really good point when you share, like, if those that you are caring for with special needs
Mm-hmm.
outlive you, have you
Yeah.
even adequately planned? So how does someone in leadership who's managing teams at work and whole organizations, as well as possibly being the primary caregiver for a child who has special needs or medical condition, how do they prepare for the future in the event that they're not there?
Yeah, so I unfortunately checked that box as well.
Oh,
My daughter Talia is severe nonverbal on the autism spectrum. She
mhm,
is now chronologically, she's 20 years old.
mhm.
Developmentally, probably about, if I'm on a good day, I'll give her 3.
Mm,
But
okay.
she's our heart, she's our life breath. And my husband and I, we've had to learn on this journey. And I said,
Mm,
with our educational background, if this was a huge learning curve for us, my heart just
yeah,
aches for others who may not have the resources and the wherewithal to know what questions to even ask to prepare for such a thing. So having to get conservatorship, because literally, I don't care what the deficits are, when your child turns 18, if you don't have that conservatorship in place, you are locked out of knowing. Literally, one of the portals that she was in for one of the hospitals, you know how you have your little electronic portal, and
right,
I started it for her. I got a nice little email saying you will no longer be able to have access to this portal. The person has turned 18. Calling to make appointments. Now, one of the benefits I had was I lived in a small town. So the people, they knew me, the doctors, they were going to do, even in the doctor's office in Memphis, they were not going to not let us do what we needed to do if we didn't have things in place. But
right.
thankfully we did. So for that portal situation, all I had to do was email them the conservatorship papers and all that stuff. But conservatorship is not a cheap thing.
Oh, now
It
you're
can
gonna have to share some of. Tell me about this a lot more.
You have to get an attorney to do it. You have to get a judge to sign off on it.
Mhm.
And once again, the benefit of living in a smaller community. Um, uh, thank goodness for my mother and her connections that I got some favor from an attorney who also had a child who has autism. And
Wow.
she
Okay.
basically cut it in half and was like, send what you can when you can. And it's like, thank goodness we could do it, but not everybody can. It can run up to $5,000
Whoa.
to get the conservatorship done, depending on where you are. And we did it in the midst of COVID. So they
Mm,
allowed us to do it virtually. And some of the other boxes you have to check annually, the judge was like, no, I'm not going to put that in there. You guys don't have to do that. So we got a little favor in that way because he knew that we were parents that were not going to abuse our conservatorship. So they didn't feel like they needed to wrangle us with the financial part of it. But you have to literally justify what you have spent, what is going on. It's a process, and some
so
people
is it
don't
almost like trust where you have to indicate
almost
how you're spending the money and that it's for the benefit of
at the
Talia?
Yes, at the end of the year. And we did set up a trust for her. Now, the thing about the trust is you have to realize once you put something in the trust, it ain't coming out. So,
Right.
so don't, if it's like something, And I didn't realize that because I was ready to put the things that I wanted to make sure was secure for her in the trust. And the attorney was like, well, you don't want to put that property in there because once it's in the trust, it's in the trust. And any government benefits that she's gotten from anything, which she didn't get any government benefits until she turned 18, they're going to get paid back first if it's ever dissolved and if anything's coming through that trust. So it was a lot to learn and things that we didn't know we had to know. But that's one of the reasons why Tony and I are doing our own little show called Parenting on the Spectrum, where we're going to try to let our life lessons help others who are on the journey. They'll be able to submit questions and things like that. And hopefully we may get to where you are to have guests and things like that too. But it's very new. We have not even uploaded our first episode, but look for it on all of your Spotify's, your BuzzFeed, your Buzzsprout, all of those little podcast platforms where we plan to be out there. Parenting on the Spectrum, hosted by Tony Johnson and Tracey Johnson.
Wow. And you just shared so much that I'm thinking like that's not even something that I need to worry about as much, but it felt quite overwhelming just hearing the intricacies of it. And I think a lot of times people depend upon the kindness of strangers or think that everything is going to be okay or it's just going to work themselves out. And from what you're sharing with me is that there is the potential to create some devastating impact, not only on the person that you're caring for, but those, the caregiver. If you don't have some assistance, some professional assistance with this, it can be tragic.
Yeah, and my heart aches for single parents. Part of why Tony and I are doing this together, the show, is because I am grateful we have been in this journey together. I couldn't fathom having done it alone. And if I could add my mom into it, I would, because the three of us have literally been the only ones who have, outside of her going to school, that have provided care for her. But I've had the conversations with those who we would seek to be a guardian for her if something were to happen to both of us, which those are tough conversations to have. And
Yes.
But you have to have them. You have to let those in your life know what your wishes are for her, and you've got to memorialize it legally as well. So
Absolutely.
Every parent should have that conversation, but we have this sometimes invincible mindset that it's not going to happen. But when you have a child with special needs, that's not a grace that you can give yourself. You've got to allow yourself to be prepared for whatever. We had been putting off the trust aspect of things, but in 2021, we were in a car accident. We were doing a little staycation. My mom had Talia, and a car did a T-bone on Tony's side of the car. And it was like, it shook our world, because it was like, we both could have been taken out in that accident. But if it had went a little further back with the way where they hit us. And so we were like, we got to get it done. So we immediately reached out to the attorney and said, let's finish this trust process. We had the conservatorship done. It's like, let's finish this trust process. We don't want to dilly-dally around. And you don't want things like that to happen to cause you to do it. But one of the things, when I mentioned the staycation, that's part of our self-care.
Beautiful.
While we do have someone, my mom, to take care of Talia the way we would like her to be taken care of, we do take advantage of doing something together. We said we were going to do something once a month, even if it was little, and things happen, you get busy, and you may not do it monthly. But when I feel my tank being emptied and I need that refill, I say, hey, it's time for us to get away. We did our most recent one. My birthday was in September, and we did, a little Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday little trip, just the two of us. And it helps us be the best people we can be so that we can be the best that we can for the loved ones in our lives.
Right. So if you're I love that, definitely planning to rejuvenate, and that's
Hmm.
absolutely something that's important when to prevent burnout is
For
to
sure.
plan your rejuvenation. What about when you are that single parent that you talked about and you
Yeah.
have this high pressure job in leadership because you need to fund all
Yeah.
of the
That
all of
part.
the things, especially caring for someone who can't care for themselves,
Yeah.
and you don't have the resources or supports in place. What can you do to begin to build some of that? Because I'm sure you've probably advised some other
For
parents.
sure, for sure. So from the big scale to the small scale. So you have the mom in leadership, which I have the conversations about that before you leave your place of work, take some time to de-stress there.
Mm,
Because if you're that parent that when you hit the door, it's on with, I need this, I need that, what are we doing, blah, 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 then you can't have that moment sometimes within the home.
right.
Doors being closed means nothing to some children. And so you need to do that before you make it home. So
Mm,
if it's sitting at your desk and or having a spot in your desk, I have one person that they have a little meditation spot within their office and they take that time to de-stress before they leave. I have others that let the gym be that outlet for them before they get home.
mhm,
Or I have others that start their day with that so that it can help them make it through the day. And at the end of the day, maybe they just need to do a little mindfulness or something to help them. The thing is, you have to be very intentional about it. It can't be something that you are just putting off. You don't want to wait until you hit that wall before you say, I need to do something.
right.
Make it a part of what you do. And I know people don't like to say schedule things, but de-stressing needs to be a regular part of your regimen because you
Mhm.
don't want to get overwhelmed. You don't want to have cuss somebody out in the grocery store and be like, "Ooh, where'd that come from?"
Right, right.
You don't want to bite the head off your assistant and be like, that might have been a little bit of an overreaction. When you know that's out when you're doing things that are out of character for you, you're already there. You know what I mean?
Mm,
You may not be burnt out, but you are definitely overwhelmed and overstressed. So
yes.
pay attention to, hopefully you have love life that can tap you on the shoulder and say, you don't seem to be yourself right now. But if you don't, you got to do your own self awareness check and
Right.
realize my tone was a little off there. I might have been a little not so patient there and find a way to so you just got to make sure that you don't allow yourself to be in that position where you your tone is off, you're being impatient. You got to make sure that if nobody else is aware, that you have the self-awareness and do your own self-checks and be honest with yourself about, hey, I am kind of burning it at both ends here and I'm about to burn out. It's okay to
Right.
admit that we're human.
Mhm. And I believe one of the most dangerous combinations is when you are not self-aware and you are in a leadership position. Because I've shared that numerous times. I had the distinct displeasure of working for a tyrant and who could not didn't had zero self-awareness
Ooh,
and absolutely could not tolerate hearing
mhm.
anything about themselves. So it's very difficult for someone to say, hey, things are a little
Not
off. Should
fun.
you be doing that? Because they're normally a
Yeah.
tyrant. uh, I definitely wanted to tap in as well
Right,
with
right.
how
Not
did they begin.
approachable at all.
Right. So how did they build a network if you are, because many of the single parents, male and female, I've heard that they don't have a life outside of work, that they don't know how to begin to build the resources and supports. Do you have any advice for
Mhm.
someone to do that
Well,
for
I would
that
say
first?
one of the things is if you don't have at least definitely a minimum of one, but I encourage two because one could be busy, go to people. And if for some reason you don't have the trust and relationship to have those go to people, then I'm going to say if you're not in therapy, get in therapy because
Okay.
we can't be islands unto ourselves. And so you have to be able
Mhm.
to build that network. And if for some reason you're not, then there's some blind spots and a therapist can help you see what's going on that you can't reach out to have those people that you can trust and lean on. That doesn't mean they're going to come in and help you take care of your child or your loved one,
Right.
whoever your caretaker, find yourself. So that's one of the ways. And then you can build those networks when you allow yourself to connect with joy. Whether it's exercising and you connect with someone at the gym, or it you join that, you've got to have that community outside of work and family.
Right.
Family is great, but we can't always lean into family and tell them things that we want to without there being
Right.
some kind of backlash or I told you so or whatever. So you need to have those unconditional people who you can share stuff with and say, "Hey, I just need you to listen. I don't
Mhm.
need advice. I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen." So you want
Right.
one or two people that you can do. And how you connect with those people could be through church, you know, but you have to have an outlet for yourself. So if
Right.
you don't have that outlet for yourself, then once again, you need to find that. And it doesn't
Right.
have to be something that costs money if money is an issue. And it doesn't have to be something that you spend a ton of time doing. I would say at least once a week because you got
And correct me if I'm wrong. There's also some support networks that
I
okay,
think you were
so
talking. Oh,
so as we resume with some of the resources, I love how you shared all of these ways that they can gather some individual personal support. Are there any organizations that might be able to support women in leadership, parents, so that they can continue to lead, love, and care for their loved ones?
yeah. Of course, I think most of you probably have heard of Autism Speaks, but the thing you need to know about it that even if your child is not on the spectrum, when you connect there are tons of resources available through that national organization. Another organization that is NAMI, that's for people who deal with any type of mental health disorder, and it helps. And it's educational and it helps the parent be able to need to know, and it can once again because it's a national platform and they have local chapters, it can also connect you to things that may be more specific to your situation. And then now you can add in parenting on the spectrum because you'll be able to send us questions and we can also give you information about things that you can do in ways that you can get help and support. This parenting journey is no joke. Wherever you're at on the spectrum, whether you have a small child, a middle school child, or an adult, it doesn't end. We call Talia our forever child because she
Mhm.
is locked in at a certain developmental stage and she will need our support. And we're grateful to be able to give it. but that means we've got to make sure we do our due diligence and care for ourselves so that we can give her what she needs. So don't feel as if, I tell people, it's not weak to ask for help, it's wisdom. You've got to be
Mm,
wise enough to know when you need to ask for help and support. It's out there.
right,
Don't feel as if you have to do this alone,
right,
because you really can't in an effective way. The thing that I want people to be able to do is, when you put your head on your pillow at night, I want you to be able to say that I did the things that I needed to do to care for myself and to care for those that I love. I don't want you
definitely.
just to pour out and to never refill.
Right, absolutely. And one of the things I think that people don't utilize enough is Family Medical Leave Act when they need to
Mm,
take care of their loved ones, or even to heal themselves for something that's going on. And I'd really love to hear from you as well, dealing with school systems or medical systems, because I
yeah,
really believe that people rely on, oh, they're the professional, they know what to do. But I feel like that can be really detrimental at times if you don't
it
educate
can.
yourself
Yeah,
through
you have
research.
to. I learned early on with Talia that I had to be the one that was her best advocate. I could not trust the educational system to make decisions that were in her best interest, because they're making decisions that are in their best interest. I can't blame them for that,
Right.
but I also have to step up. Um, I heard, I don't know how many times, we've never done that before. Well, guess what? She will be the first that you're going to do it for, because that's what she needs and that's what I need you to do. So don't allow yourself to be intimidated by a system. Even when it comes to her doctor, I had to change doctors because I knew something was wrong with her not making her milestones. Yes,
Mhm.
all children develop differently, but I
Right.
knew very early on when, I mean, I'm talking like probably 4 or 5 months, and maybe even sooner than that, that my baby was different. I was okay with that. I just needed whatever help she needed to be for her. I'm not
Right.
big on a diagnosis. She was well into the school system before she got her autism diagnosis. And I didn't
Wow.
care, because as long as you're giving her her ABA, you're giving her the services that she needs, I don't need the diagnosis.
Right.
But the insurance needs the diagnosis.
Right. The
So
almighty
that's why
insurance
I
companies.
continue to fight for her to get it,
Right.
because I knew. I mean, yes, as a professional, I saw it, but I also saw it as a mom. So go with your gut, and we know we all have those gut instincts, and don't let people tell you no. You need to start the process early for the IEP, because an MD has to sign off for your child to have an individualized education plan. And if you need a 504 plan instead, do that.
Right.
Educate yourself. There's so many platforms out there. And if you connect to us on Parenting on the Spectrum, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here sharing about all those things, but they're important. We get the opportunity to do this as parents. So don't allow someone else to, okay,
So don't
okay,
allow
good.
someone,
Okay, yeah,
basically don't
don't,
allow
don't,
someone
don't
else to
allow someone
dictate
else to
their care.
dictate what is best. That doesn't mean you're going to negate their professional judgment. I'm going to try again. That doesn't mean you're going to negate their professional
Right.
judgment, but you're also going to trust what you feel is best as a parent.
Right.
So navigate that educational system, asking for what you need, talking to the doctors, and if they're not saying and doing the things that you feel is in the best interest of your child, it's okay to change provider. Who do you work with? So I think I answered most of those questions. One other thing, we recently had, for the first time, she's 20 years old. Talia had never been in the hospital,
Mm,
but we had a week-long hospital stay. Oh goodness. And that was a huge life lesson for us, the hospital stay, because we had to educate them on how to treat a child with special needs. Because even though she was an adult, she was really like a 3-year-old. So having to teach them what needed to happen, it was a lot. So I can probably write a whole book on that hospital experience with her. And it can be very educational for professionals and for parents.
So, I mean, in summation, a lot of what I hear you're saying is you need to look for professionals and school systems that value the information you bring as a parent because you understand your child to not be intimidated by systems and titles and organizations, and you are the strongest advocate, and you need advocates for you in the background in order to do what you need to do for yourself and your child. Is that pretty much what can be as helpful
There are
to?
organizations out there that can come along. There are organizations that can come alongside you and help you advocate as well
Beautiful,
if that's needed.
beautiful. So, Tracey, Dr. Tracey, and I know you so intimately, I sometimes forget. But Dr. Tracey Johnson, I am so thankful that you have come here today to share all of your wisdom and your knowledge. Because I know you've been a leader for a very long time, and you've been the parent to Talia for a long time. You have a wonderful support system and a wonderful family, and that's why I really wanted to be able to bring you here to share some of that wisdom and guidance. And I love that we get to be the first to announce the new show that you have coming up with your husband Tony, because I think it's going to be very valuable for people out there. Any last words before we end today?
When you choose to be a parent, you don't know what God is going to bless you with. But as a to do whatever is required of you. And so if you need to educate yourself, if you need to build a support system, make sure in the process that you take care of yourself.
Beautifully said. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Leadership Beyond Burnout. We had a few technical issues today, but I just want to thank you for being here, and hopefully you received everything you need. If you have any questions, don't forget to put them in the comment section. And until next time, we'll see you here on Leadership Beyond Burnout on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.